Hey everyone. Hey everyone. It's your girl, Miss Anna Little Cool. I'm coming to you live and direct on this Sunday night evening. Some people say evening. I grew up saying night, but hey, it is what it is. It's dark outside up in NYC. So I'm in the house, I'm just relaxing, chilling. As many of you all know, this past week was my birthday week and everything. And thank you for everyone on YouTube who's basically giving me birthday shout outs. I really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning into the live. I really, 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 really appreciate it. So I want to say first and foremost, this live that I'm about to do, I was supposed to do this the week before my birthday. Okay. But the reason why I didn't do it was because I said to myself, what I'm talking about with this topic, do I really want to speak about this coming into my birthday? Do you really want to talk about racist white Christians, identified Christians, paleo conservatives who are fans of a black woman that speaks white supremacist talking points, which is really why they love her? It's not because of her stance on abortion or her being against it. Do you really want to bring that energy into your birthday? And I thought about it and I didn't pray over it. I was just like, nah. And I'm going to be honest with you. I grew up in the church, okay? But I've never been a fanatic. My family has never been a fanatic. My grandmother was a PK growing up, and nor was her father a fanatic. It's something they believed in. They loved Christ. I'm saying love because they passed on. They don't die because, unlike Beverly and Betty, she believes that, you know, ancestors die. That tells you right there she's not a Christian because in the Bible, it talks about everlasting life. Okay. No one dies, whether they're good or whether they're bad. Spirits live because all of us has a soul inside of us. When we transition, we leave this body behind and we go into what is known as the afterlife. And we take all of our thoughts, our intellect, soul, and our spirit with us. And whether we were good, we go to a good place. Whether we were bad, we go to a not so good place. If we were in between, we go into a place that they call purgatory, which means you're going to have to go to a school. All of this is in what we call the good book. Okay. Now, I'm saying this because this is what was taught to me by my elders. Okay. All right. This was taught to me. And I'm going to get into that later on down the stream. But why I've titled this Straighten Out, I have some straightening out, and we're going to straighten out some things, especially. I don't care if you don't like my commentary. I've been on here. This week will make half a decade. And I am a small YouTuber, and I chose to be that. I never came on here to basically blow up with millions. This has always been a hobby because I always stayed paid with a job. Okay. My reason for doing this was to basically talk about things that a lot of YouTubers weren't talking about. Okay. I do commentary. I'm not a journalist. I don't do spoofs. I don't do pranks. And I don't do what you would call it, sketches. I don't do sketches. I do commentary about news events, breaking news, and I have recently returned to doing reviews of television shows, not just on this channel, but I have a channel that is strictly for reviews on movies, television shows, documentaries, comedy specials, and music, okay? That I will be going back to. I took a 2-month break on that so that I could do it on this channel because this channel is now kicking in revenue, okay? So if you follow my channel, you know, hey Eric, what's up? Yes, I'm going in. I'm going in. I'm going in. Just give me like 2 more minutes and I'm gonna talk about this, okay? So Why I titled this is because last week, I basically, no, not even last week, almost last month, I did a commentary about Beverly Beatty, who is now married. She goes by the name Williams, but she's famously known as Beverly Beatty, okay? She will always be known as such. Her husband, Ricky Williams, and her best friend, Edme Chavon, they got arrested for trespassing at a Nashville, Tennessee Planned Parenthood center. They were told before they got out the car, you can't walk on the property unless you already have an appointment. Okay? Instead of just, driving away, they defied them, got in the guard's face, and the guard was being polite. And Edme is, condemning him to hell. Beverlyn is condemning him. Now, the husband was sort of quiet. But what happened was they got arrested. The husband got arrested first because what happened was when he was walking away, the cop was kind of making it seem like he really wasn't walking away, because initially he kind of wasn't. But what happened, and I mentioned this, he saw a bulge, and the bulge on the side of him was a gun. Now, he got arrested first, and then the other cop, who was gorgeous, he started talking to Beverlyn and her friend Edme, and then the woman who they was disrespectfully calling Bunquisha and Shaniqua, because she was a Black American woman. I'm gonna get to that as well. They basically called her all those derogatory names. She said that they basically came off really threatening, and they were banging on the door. They didn't come in though, but they were doing a lot of stuff that made people feel uneasy, that they ended up getting arrested. Now, they was accusing this place of performing abortions. They didn't do their due diligence, because if they would have known that a month prior, June 24th, Tennessee banned abortions all throughout the state. You can't even go to Tennessee. You can't even go to Arkansas. You got to go to, I think the closest state is North Carolina. They're still performing them. Okay. So that's a neighboring state. Tennessee neighbors South North Carolina. So they did that all for nothing. They got arrested all for nothing. That's what I said. So I posted this commentary, and today it has 1.2 thousand views, 1,200 some odd views. And congratulations to everybody who watched and supported. And I want to shout out Robert Phillips. I want to shout out Grace M. I want to shout out everybody from my subscribers who watched it, other people who commented and saw through the BS. I appreciate that. Now, what occurred is that, yes, Eric, very crazy. Now, I was already doing research, finished my research, completed it, was going to do the live 2 weeks from that day when I first did it. And the live I was going to do was really about Beverly Betty. Is she a true Christian, or is she a fraud? Now, I want y'all to understand the context of this. When I mean a true Christian, is she sincere about Jesus Christ, or is she in it for the hustle? If you know Beverly Betty's backstory, you would know that Beverly Betty has a history of being a scammer. Okay. And she was scamming, and she's told us, because most of her is transparent. I will give her that. She's transparent about most of her past. And I've done research. So I can tell you that what she said, for the most part, was legitimate based on the research that I've done. Okay. What she basically said was that she got arrested many times. There's proofs of mugshots there. She basically has a degree in business fashion merchandising. Okay. And she worked at one time in the industry, but she's blackballed. She can't work in the fashion industry nor in the entertainment industry because she scammed a woman. She said this on one of her lives that she took down. She took this down, and she probably took it down because people would probably come back and talk about it and cut and paste and use it as proof. Okay. So she's blackballed from the entertainment industry. She did get arrested. She served 17 days in jail. She doesn't have a convicted felony on her record. So she's not a convicted felon. That is true. But she has a lot of arrests, and she had quite a bit of warrants. Most of them coming from the state of the state of North Carolina. She has one in Maine when she was running in Maine because she got upset because she saw a transgender go into the women's restroom, and she got into an argument with one of the patrons at the establishment at the bar, and she got arrested for, I believe, assault or battery, and she had to drop out the race because she was running for representative of Maine on a Republican ticket. They didn't remove her name, but she did garner about 21% of the vote, which wasn't bad, being that you basically resigned. And she said God told her, oh, yes, all these scammers out here, yep, and they scamming in the name of Jesus, you know. Now I'm gonna get to that part. So what happened is I used to watch, I was a subscriber of her original channel because I remember her on Vice. And even though she was a MAGA, I've never been part of MAGA country. She was part of MAGA. And what she said on the Vice channel, this is before I knew of Matt, what's her name? What's his name? Gavin McInnes and the connection to the Proud Boys. I didn't know he was connected to them, let alone one of the founders of them. What she had said, it did make a lot of sense what she was talking about. And she wasn't some corny Black conservative. She was a person who was like a down ass sister. Okay. And so, yeah, they're garbage. So what ended up happening was that the pandemic occurred, the lockdowns happened. Now, I was working because I work as an essential worker. So what happened is one day, I'll never forget, this was around about the middle of June. And this was right after this was right after the George Floyd, tragedy occurred. And I see this woman talking, and she's talking about how, you can talk about Black Lives Matter all you want, but if you're aborting Black babies, then what's the point? And I said this a long time ago. I had said this back in 2018. I even talked about that back in 2017 on an upload that I eventually took down because there were like some things with the sound that was wrong, that was bad with it. So I took it down, but it was one of my earliest videos. Okay. And so I basically agreed. So then I saw the video where she poured the black paint over the Black Lives Matter sign. Now I didn't agree with that because I know for a fact Black Lives Matter started out as a hashtag before it got co-opted into an organization. The organization is now organic, but the movement comes from Trayvon Martin when he got shot unlawfully in 2012 by, guess, George Zimmerman. So there's a connection with George, the name George, because if you know what the name George means, it means earth tender, a person who tends to the earth. And it's like George Zimmerman opened that catalyst that birthed Black Lives Matter, the hashtag. But then George Floyd getting killed unjustly by the cop, he ended up really shattering everything around the world with the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And it not only became forceful, but that's how we got Juneteenth, a celebration of freedom for Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, but all people, particularly all Black people in the diaspora, are very welcome to basically align with us and celebrate that holiday. I want to make that clear. So it's that connection with the name. So I didn't agree with that. But her stance on abortion, I agreed with. I agreed with her stance on a Black family. I agreed with it. There was something else I agreed with when it came to like working and, not laying on your ass. I agreed with quite a bit of what she said. Not everything. I would say about 75% of what she said. So this was the spring coming into summer of 2012. Then what happened, I started seeing other videos. And what I didn't like was when she made a commentary about ancestors. That was the first flag. Because no. The first flag was when she was bigging up Giuliani. I said, oh no, you wrong. I grew up with Giuliani, and I could tell you he was horrible. How he treated a lot of black people, particularly civil servant workers. My mother was a civil servant worker. He was trying to shut down her agency. Okay? Civil servant workers did not like him. Okay? Then the whole thing with the cops and law enforcement, he was a pro-cop person. Then I found out she was having conversations with this man. She even showed a photo of her having a one-on-one FaceTime with Giuliani. So my antennas went up, okay? Now I knew she was MAGA from the Vice interview. Then she was repping the Proud Boys, and I'm like, okay, now this is wrong. And it was rumored, it's never been confirmed, but it was rumored that one of their legal counselors was Giuliani. And they are the army of Trump. They're like Trump's, street bodyguards, so to speak. Then she bigged up Paula Deen and said, people don't like Paula Deen. They call her racist, but that's my sister. She can cook because she had once her restaurant. This is a woman who admits that she calls a black man a nigger. This is a woman who did not pay her black employee that worked with her for over 30 years. Treated her virtually like a slave. So that's when I saw, I think she's pandering. So that's when I was like, I'm cool on her. But I didn't dislike her until she did a commentary about blacks versus niggas. And I said she's pandering and she's talking bad about FBA ADOS, and I ain't cool with it. And that's when I started going through her videos. And after 10 videos, I said, this young lady has a disdain for her own lineage. I can't support this. I can't. Oh, I hope she wasn't throwing it back in a circle. Okay, you know what, Eric? Eric, you know what? You know what? Yo, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I honestly thought she was going to end up with a white man. I really did. And I'm going to get to that. I really thought she was going to be with a white man. I really did. But what happened was I never did any commentary about her at all. I was just, I'm going to walk away from her channel. I can't do it. So I ended up unsubscribing. Then I got, a notification from my timeline that she pretty much had a new video out. And the new video, basically, this was after watching her backstory video, because I was still subscribed to her when I saw the backstory. So I wanted the backstory video I saw before she talked about blacks versus niggas. I want to make that clear. But this video was about Candace versus the girl who was Kim Classic, who was running in Baltimore. They was beefing. So I'm like, so I forgot about her. This was like 4 months later. So I clicked on it because I'm like, okay, whatever. She looked real clean, smooth, and whatever. And she looked like she was really calm. So I'm noticing that she only had about 3K subs. I'm like, wait, didn't this girl have 160K subs? Come to find out, she lost her channel. And she lost her channel because it got pulled. It got pulled because she was talking about gay people, lesbian people, transgender people, and they flagged her channel, and they basically said that it was hate speech. Now, I'm not going to lie. It's one thing to say you disagree with them, but it's another thing to basically say that they're going to go to hell, and saying things like they're going to get sick, and basically talking about like the House of Virginia, saying that, if you do stuff like this, it was bad. It was bad because I was hearing it, but I didn't walk away because of that. I walked away because she talked about she wasn't representing ADOS and FBA like she should have. Okay. So many people don't know this, Yes, it did. It got shadowed. Many people don't know this, but she got her fame through Brandon Tatum. When she poured the black paint over the Black Lives Matter sign, Brandon Tatum loved her so much and called her a real Christian woman that he recommended all his subs to go and view her channel. And he had at that time 1.5 million subs. Do you know that practically all of her subs were from his channel? Because you want to know why? When she turned on him, guess what? They all started leaving. And when she popped up with the new channel, she only had no more than 8.54K before she got rid of that one and started the new one. Now she has 2 point some odd thousand, but she's never been at the height that she was because she basically, kind of in a strange way, condemned the person that helped to make her channel, which was Brandon Tatum. Because he didn't believe that Jesus was God. You can't make this up. So, going fast forward to when she married her husband. She married this man. Now, there's 2 instances, one that she spoke of and one on her Instagram channel. Instagram, because I do my research. On her Instagram channel, she talked about how she was talking to this man for over a year. And then, she took his advice to meet him. They were supposed to originally meet during the day of the insurrection. But what happened was the insurrection occurred. So everybody had to go home. Now, if you go on his page, I got the photo to prove it. So nobody can dispute me because I'm the queen of screenshots and everything. He basically brought oil to Washington, D.C. to bless the country. It was holy oil. It was anointing oil that he brought. So he was blessing it, because this is around the time before the election results were certified. So the MAGA people, because he's MAGA also, he wanted Trump to be, to win. But there's a little known secret that a lot of people don't know. The real reason why they were really out there. They weren't really out there just because they were supporting Trump. They were out there to wait for the arrival or the return of John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., aka JFK's son. You see, the QAnon people are really mostly what composes MAGA. The QAnon people believe that JFK Jr. is still alive and that he is a MAGA supporter and that he was going to return on January 6th and that he was going to discuss what they did to his father and talk about how he faked his own death. So he was going to come there with a full beard because he hadn't shaved in 21 years, and that he was going to end up running for president. So all these people got you thinking that they was there just supporting Trump. Oh no, they was waiting for the return of JFK Jr., who is a Democrat, but they say that he became a Republican and was a Trump supporter. You can't make this shit up, okay? And her husband was one of those people that believed that because at one time it was on his page, but he removed it because he did get some flack from that, okay? Seeing it myself, I should have took that photo, but I was in my own world at the time. But anyway, the husband, I got a bad vibe from him because this is just my belief. I believe he came there and married her to get the bag because 4 months after meeting in person, they got married. And in this day and age, that ain't something that's normal. So for me, I said red flags. So what happened is they made a video where they was telling people to get jobs. Now, they were living in Tennessee at that time. They got married in Tennessee. You can look this stuff up for yourself. Just type in their names and it will come up, okay? What occurred is that this is around the time in September where people were losing their jobs because they didn't want to comply with the mandates. So they were talking about how you lazy bum because they saw somebody begging because they didn't have money and they just wanted food. Can I have some money to buy food or could you buy me food? And them being Christians, they made fun of that man and basically told him to get a job. And her husband, who we don't know what he does, was like, JOB, get a job. So what I did was I basically said, you know what? I am going to basically comment, and I'm just going to warn her because I commented once originally on her first channel, and it was basically talking about, abortion. And that was the only time I commented. And this is when I was a sub. But this time, I basically warned her. And if I can find it, hold on, let me see, because I should be able to find it. I'm going to read it. Hold on. I am the queen of. So I'm in. So this is what I guess. How the fuck am I a guest? Hold on. Oh, you can invite a guest. Okay. I don't know why I got doubles, but oh well. Come on to my channel. Yeah. If you basically come on, yeah, it was, and I didn't even do that, Eric. Now, if you go on my community feeds and you look at her husband, his name is Ricky Williams. Read about how he talked about how black people, don't like the founding fathers. Her husband is Trinidadian American. She's foundational Black American. I basically have issues with him because of his complaints about us as Black Americans when it comes to race. Now, he mentioned on the live back in June that he didn't like Obama. He hated him at one time, but he realized it wasn't Christian-like to hate Obama. It's not normal for another young Black man to hate another Black man. Come to find out, he got all his hate from Obama because he was watching Alex Jones. This is where he learned of David Barton, who I spoke about on my channel 2 months ago, who was part of the Southern Poverty Law Center's Hall of Shame. People who are bigots, people who are racist, promote white supremacist ideologies. So what happened was, I said, now it all makes sense. This is when I started to have a disdain for them. Back in November of last year, they actually went live to talk about how Trump had received an award from the Log Cabin Republicans. And for those of you who know of this, it's the Gay Republican Political Action Committee. They've been around for decades. They don't bother anyone per se. They're conservative, but they're gay. So what happened? They got upset and said that these people wanted to promote homosexuality in schools. And what occurred was that they lied. And he mentioned David Barton, and how David Barton, who was a historian, has said that back in 1978, they wanted to pass this referendum so that the gays wanted to pass a referendum so they could teach homosexuality in schools. I know about that referendum, and that wasn't the case. Okay? So a quick summary for people who may not know it. In 1977, there were gay people in the state of California who were getting fired from all employment, not just teaching, but all employment, pretty much because they were gay. And this was being led by people like Anita Bryant, who was from Florida, who was a country singer who no longer was making hits. And she wanted to basically stop the gay movement. And there was another man who was a leading California state senator. Okay. So they was firing all teachers who were gay, but also gay people who were in high civil servant positions. It had nothing to do with them trying to teach gay, ideology to children. It wasn't that. They just wanted to, be able to keep their jobs. They went on this attack simply because they could not legally attack Black people anymore due to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and 65. They could not come after us anymore. So that's when they started putting all their ducks in a row to go after gays and lesbians. So what happened was in 78, the referendum didn't pass. It failed. And the person who led the charge was Harvey Milk. 5 months later, Harvey Milk and George Gasconi were assassinated. But the reason why their assassination didn't get the news recognition that should have got, because a week and a half prior to that, Jonestown massacre occurred. So they was more focused on Jonestown as opposed to Harvey Milk and the mayor of San Francisco being assassinated. But it was all rooted in that proposition not being passed. The gays won, and they still were able to keep their jobs to this day. Now, what's going on now is some weirdo shit. That's separate from what happened in 78. But see, what made me have my disdain with them was because they lied. Not only did David Barton lie, who has been proven to not be a historian at all, which all he has is a BA in religious studies, not even in history, but those two didn't do their due diligence. Now, I found out from Bevelyn's live, she does not read anything but the Bible. She only listens to things from history, and she gets her history information, besides listening to audio of it, she gets it from her husband because he reads to her. That is some mind control shit if it isn't. How can he talk about Black Americans when he ain't doing nothing about the problems that's going on in Trinidad? Bam. There you go. There you go. Because you know what it is? He's trying to cleave himself onto being American. He calls himself. See, here's my issue with the husband. Why aren't you celebrating the richness of your lineage, which is Trinidad? Trinidad has a lot of history, believe it or not. And Trinidad has been a great ally in history amongst Black Americans. It's a known fact, okay? Particularly in Harlem, Trinidad, there was a strong allyship between Trinidadians and Black Americans due to Ada Clayton Powell marrying the acclaimed pianist Hazel Scott, who is from my neighborhood. My mother used to see her and him every single day, practically on 7th Avenue, which is across the street from where my family was from. Okay. That's how close Trinidadians and Black Americans are. And it's a known fact that many of the Moroccans in Trinidad came from America and left due to like the American Revolutionary War. They started with the British, and then some of them was like, F this shit, I'm out. There is a closeness with Trinidad and Black Americans. So when I see him talking the way he does, it's a total red flag, because most Trinidadians that I know don't think like him. They don't think like him at all. Now, it's funny that you mentioned that, because my whole thing is this. Why are you as a Black man claiming these white men as your founding fathers? We don't even call them founding fathers no more. We call them the framers, because we are the builders of this country. We did the labor, not just in the field, but also in the house, and also the architecture. We did all that. We built the White House. When the first White House was the first White House that was destroyed during the war in 1812, we rebuilt that one and made it better and made it proof, like fireproof in those days, to where, listen, it's going to be hard for you to basically, try to kidnap a leading, like a world, like a leading president, or like a person who is the leader of the country. That's how come it's an oval. Okay. Now, another thing about him is that he has a disdain for masonry. He gets that. This is from me watching. More than likely, he gets it from Alex Jones, because Alex Jones actually, going back to 2008 and probably before that, he does not like masonry. He talks about the Masons. Now, peep game. Nobody was bitching about masonry until Obama announced that he was running for president. All this because a Black man who had an African father was running for president. We all know how it all turned out. We know it didn't turn out at all to be really beneficial for Black America. But the thing is that we got to be honest about something. There were people calling this man the Antichrist. I saw videos where if you vote for this man, you going to hell. I saw this. And Alex Jones was the main one promoting this. I even remember when they was talking about him being a Muslim. Okay. So all this was going into a lot of people's minds who were really easy and susceptible to, being scared. And I believe, this is my belief, I believe that her husband was one of those people that got shook by this. And he developed a hate for Obama. And he goes around basically posting things. I have the screenshots where he posts that he does not, like, George Washington wasn't a Mason. How is a non-Mason buried in a Mason cemetery? How is a non-Mason wearing a Mason apron? The man was a Mason. All of them were Masons, except for one, or maybe two now, or maybe three, because I don't even think Obama was really a Mason like that. But we know JFK wasn't, and more than likely Biden isn't, and that's because they're Catholic, because you can't be a Catholic and you can't be a Mason. I know this because I was raised Catholic. Even though my family was originally AME and Baptist, you can't. So JFK wasn't. And I think that's why her husband liked JFK, because he wasn't Mason. He couldn't be. There were a lot of things that JFK didn't know, but believe it or not, people like Martin Luther King knew, people like Asa Randolph, who was a family friend of my paternal grandmother's family, he knew. Who else? Even John Lewis, because they were all Masons. So there were things that JFK didn't know. And if you don't believe it, watch American Horror Story season 10, Death Valley. That's an excellent, excellent season, the double feature. That one when he's in the bed with Marilyn Monroe and he's talking and he's like, I'm president, but nobody tells me nothing. They was dropping information about that because he didn't know what was really going on. Now with the alien stuff, but it was fact. There was a lot of things he wasn't privy to because he was not a Mason. He was Catholic. So that was the truth. They wasn't capping on that. Now, with me talking about this couple and the shenanigans that they did with the whole Planned Parenthood fiasco that could have been prevented, I started receiving condemnation from her fans. And what happened was one of her fans basically called me a gossiper. And I posted a commentary. I basically comment back. Do you know that they removed it because I talked about Carolyn Bryant? I mentioned Emmett Till. It never went through. I posted it, sent it, and it was blank. This is how powerful the shit is. Now, many of her subs are racist. They only really follow her because of how and they told this to me. They basically said, we love her because she holds Black Americans accountable. You could go on my channel, read the comments. And I kept all of them except for one. And this is the one that I reported. I basically posted that, I basically flagged the comment and I basically posted that you was bullying me and this was harassment and I'm being harassed and bullied. So I issued that warning, which is don't come on my channel condemning me to hell because I'm calling out y'all fave that y'all made a profit. If y'all making these people profits because you like the fact that they're speaking bad about Black Americans, I'm not going to even shame y'all because that's in y'all DNA. You're a racist because that's what you believe in, and you're using the Christianity to basically support this type of ideology and thinking. I'm not surprised. Okay, history's proven that. But when you basically, as a Black person, promote and say these things because you're really doing it for clout, for money, for attention, that's a problem. Okay? Because to a point, I don't believe that she's doing this all for sincerity. I believe she's saying this and agreeing with them for the bad. Like Eric, case in point, when she talked about Ahmaud Arbery, I never saw that video. I never saw that video at all when I was in Sorry Hers. But I posted it and it just basically posted more proof. Now, the reason originally I was going live to talk about her was because there was a photo that she removed. And it was a photo that she basically shared of Black people who were supposedly slave owners. And they were in the state of Louisiana. And this man who was high yellow was a slave owner. And she said, this is proof right here that Blacks also own slaves. She got a lot of press for this. This is a girl who doesn't read history. She listens to it in audio or she reads it from her husband. She got that information from her husband, as well as her husband probably got it from David Barton. Well, here's the problem. I'm a descendant of Louisianans, direct descendant from my father's father, okay? All right? My ancestors, they come from Plaquemine, Louisiana, the city of Plaquemine, okay? And there's something that a lot of people don't know because they don't teach it in school. Until 1896, the Creole class in Louisiana were not classified as Black. And because Louisiana is a state that follows the Commonwealth, Conoco is a Commonwealth of France, aka they go by Napoleonic Code, which means they can shoot you and, ask questions later. They don't have to read you your rights. Black people were not slave owners. Those high yellows were Creoles. They weren't classified as Blacks until 1896 under the famous case called Plessy v. Ferguson that made separate but equal the law of the land until 1954. You see, Homer Plessy was upset because he was a Creole, and they told him, because he got outed by the white people on the car train, they was like, he's colored. And he was like, I'm not colored like them. And so they was like, well, show your papers, show your proof. So he pulled out that he was Creole. So they was like, you still got to go to the back because you're not white. Now, no, he was not white, but he was not a Black person under legal classification in the state of Louisiana. So he took his case, Homer Plessy took his case all the way up to the Supreme Court, and it was ruled that he was not white. Therefore, he couldn't have privileges like a white person. So he had to go to the back and use separate facilities as opposed to whites. So up until that time, Creoles were very privileged. Sometimes they were more privileged than whites, but they were never classified as Blacks because they weren't such, because most of them had very little African blood. Some of them had maybe 10% because their African lineage was 4 or 5 generations removed from them. Okay? Because if you know the history of Louisiana went all the way up to North Dakota, present day North Dakota. So when I saw that, it pissed me off because that's my lineage and that's my heritage. And those are my ancestors. Okay? And I don't play that shit. Don't lie to prove a point. And the reason why they did that is because their handlers know, because I do believe they're told to do things. Their handlers told them, Black Americans are fighting for their reparations against slavery. It's not dealing with race. We need you all to go out there and basically post something up. This is my belief. They needed them to post that there. And many people fell for the con. And I said, I got to talk about it. And I'm talking about it right now. And this is the whole thing. And the purpose of what I did and what I'm going to do, because I'm not going to talk about this all on this channel. I have another channel that I created 7 months ago talking about Tasha K. And that channel, I'm going to talk about her, Bevelyn Beatty, on that channel, because that's a more serious channel. We have to call out Black people who use the Bible to support white supremacist ideologies, who are trying to undermine us. See, a lot of us are really going with the back and forth of, foreign blacks undermining us through Twitter space. But we don't see the Christian blacks doing it because they don't come through our algorithm. They basically are secluded. And they really stay in their own world because they know that if they were to come in contact with us, they would get shut down verbally. They wouldn't win the debate at all. So they're actually always coddled amongst white people. What we have to do is we have to make sure that they're called out, because I don't think it's fair to call out the tethers that don't like us, that don't think we should have rights. But these Black Christians, many of them foundational Black Americans, doing the same thing. I don't think that's fair, because a lot of people in history, even in the civil rights movement, they would go to those cops. They would go to Bull Connor and tell Bull Connor what the civil rights leaders were doing. They were spying on them. And when they were found out to be spies, many of them were expelled. They had to move up north, move out west, because they were looked upon as turncoats. They got to be called out. And there's a way to call people out without basically, doing it in a classy way, because I don't believe in beefing with people or anything like that. I'm a 39-year-old woman. I look great for my age, okay? The problem I have with Bevelin more than anything is that you don't even hang out with people from your lineage. You got your husband is Trinidadian American. Your best friend is from Paris, France, whose parents are from Haiti. Now I'm going to say something about this. You talking about our politics, meddling our affairs. And you talk about, the abortion clinics and things like that going on in America. But homegirl, why you ain't trying to change the legal age of consent in Paris from 14 to 18? Paris, France in general. Let me tell you about France. Where this girl comes from, Edme, or woman, because she older than me. Do you know that the legal age of consent is 14 in France? Did you know that many of their movies, like the movie Cuties, they could show total nudity if the girl is 14 in the movie? The 14-year-old actress who's like the same age as many actresses on Nickelodeon and Disney can be in full frontal nude scenes where she's having sex with a grown man and it's deemed legal. There's posters. When France advertises movies, the girls are naked, showing their breasts, showing their butt. I mean, the only thing they won't show in the poster, they won't show their private frontals. Why don't she go over there and stop that? Why are you coming over here stopping things where I don't agree with abortion, but if the woman chooses to basically have this procedure, because you don't know what's going on with her, you don't know what she's been through, why are you meddling in her affairs? Why are you getting involved in that? And that's hypocrisy I have. And I feel like I don't believe that Bevelin believes a lot of what she's saying, but I do believe she doesn't really like. And I'm saying believe. I'm not saying it as fact. I don't believe that she believes that a lot. I don't believe that she really likes being Black American. And that's the problem. And that's why it was so easy for her to basically be down with this, ultra conservative Proud Boys agenda, Trump, and she turned on Trump, and now she's rooting for DeSantis, who anybody who's rooting for DeSantis, unless you really believe in what he has to say, may God be with you. Because to me, Trump isn't scary compared to DeSantis. That's all I'm going to say. DeSantis scares me. You want to stop teaching. You labeling Black history as critical race theory. Did you know that a Black teacher got fired because he basically was posting photos of his white wife, and they said it was critical race theory because it was an interracial marriage. This is what's going on in the world. So I'm about to get up out of this live. Thank you for everyone that has viewed it. I appreciate it. And shout out to my homie Eric Johnson, 1994, from the dirty South. Thank you for your support. I'm going to talk to y'all tomorrow. Thank you. If you want to cash at me, it's $ Bella Champagne 15. If you want to, send super chats, I welcome them, or just support my channel, either or. But thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you all later. Good night.